Welcome to the video for day 6. Today we're going to talk about solving quadratics by using the quadratic formula. So when a quadratic cannot be factored, we have another option that we can use to solve. The last method, this method that we're going to use, is applying a formula to solve a quadratic. It's called the quadratic formula. X equals negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. We can write the formula down. There is a song that you can sing it to. It's Pop Goes the Weasel, and I'll go over that more in class. You don't actually have to memorize this, but you can use that song to memorize, to write it down. But again, it is given to you, so you do not have to memorize it. So the quadratic formula is, so there's our formula, negative b plus or minus the square root, and you'll notice that it's over everything that's underneath that radical, b squared minus 4 times a c, all divided by 2a. So this formula, again, isn't given to you, so you do not have to memorize it. You do need to be able to plug in, though, and use that formula. So again, we're going to need to identify a, b, and c in our quadratics, just like we did before, and then plug them in the spot in the quadratic formula. Okay, we'll go through an example. So as I said, just like before, the first step when we use the quadratic formula is to make sure that the equation is equal to 0. That's whenever we're solving. So we can see everything's on the left equal to 0. So now that it's all equal to 0, we just need to identify a, b, and c, write those down, and then plug them into the equation. So here I wrote down a equals 2, b equals negative 12, c equals 14, and now we'll just plug them in. Everywhere I saw a b in the equation, we're going to replace it with the number negative 12, and a will be replaced with a 2, and c will be replaced with a 14. So you can see here I subbed everything in using parentheses everywhere I subbed in a value. Be very careful with this. This negative in front means that it's going to be a negative 12, like I wrote here, because the b value is a negative. So this becomes a negative 12 plus minus the square root, and then we have, again, all the parentheses everywhere we subbed in, and then the 2 times 2 in the denominator. Now, to evaluate this the easiest, what you want to do is first start off by putting the negative 12 out front here, changing this to a positive 12. So what I deal with first is what is out front here, then the plus minus radical. But before you put in the radical, because the number underneath may be a perfect square, but it might not be. So we have to figure out what that number is first, so then we can decide if we need to simplify the radical or if it's a perfect square and we can just take the square root of it. So the first thing, like I said, negative 12 becomes 12. Then I put the plus minus radical, but before I can figure out what it is, I need to put in parentheses, negative 12 squared minus 4 parentheses 2 close parentheses 14 close parentheses, so that I can figure out what the number under the radical would be. So that's all going in your calculator, not the radical sign, not the square root, just all the values underneath the square root. So then I have the radical 32, and then in the bottom 2 times 2 equals 4. So now we have that radical 32, but we need to do this next step, simplify the radical here, because this 32 is not a perfect square, but there is a perfect square that goes in. So remember, we find 32 on the VIPS list, wherever it falls, start dividing backwards. So since we have 32 falls between 25 and 36, we're going to start with 25 and then just keep moving up, 16 until we find the one that goes in. 16 is the first one. So since 16 times 2 is equivalent to 32, then we can take the square root of 16 to get 4. So that becomes 4 radical 2. Now I can go put that back in where radical 32 was. Okay, so then we have this 12 plus minus 4 radical 2. Now both of these things are being divided by 4. So if you want to write them out as 2 separate fractions, you can, or you can kind of do that pretzel method where we divide 12 by 4 and then the 4 radical 12 by 4. I'll write it out as 2 separate fractions so you can see that in case that's the way you want to write it. Otherwise, you can do pretzel method and loop these first 2 terms, the first term with the denominator and then the second term with the denominator. So then we have this 12 divided by 4 plus minus 4 radical 2 divided by 4. So 12 divided by 4 is 3. Still have the plus minus. 4 divided by 4 is 1, so I don't have to write the 1. You can if you want to. So all I need there is the radical 2 that's left over. So then that's my answer here. We have this x equals 3 plus minus radical 2, because the everything else canceled out. That 4 over 4 canceled, 12 divided by 4 became a 3. So I didn't need fractions anymore in my answer. So remember that this is 2 answers. We have technically 3 plus radical 2 and 3 minus radical 2. But since neither one came out nice, we can just leave it as that. Okay, that's it for this video. Hopefully that helped you learn how to use quadratic formula. Remember, you're just identifying the a, b, and c variables, using the formula, and substituting them in place of the a, b, and c in the quadratic formula. We'll do more of it in class. Have a great day.